Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Inner Republic. In today's episode, I want to talk about the one thing that no podcast host, no functional practitioner, no fitness coach is really talking about when it comes to improving your health, your longevity, and even your fitness long term. But before we get into talking about what that one thing is that they're not talking about, I would love it if you could subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow me on Instagram at Sean_Ranney. And if you're listening to this on a podcast, make sure you're subscribed and maybe send it to somebody who you think could use the information. So let's get into today's episode. So the one thing that none of these people really talk about when it comes to their protocols, their healing message, their fitness regimens, whatever it is mindset. Now, I know immediately some people are going to roll their eyes when I say the word mindset, but here's the undeniable fact. The thing that governs our world, our reality, is our mind. And what I find is the people that I work with, whether they're athletes and I'm in the gym with them, or they're my clients I'm working on with their health as a functional practitioner, everything comes back to their mindset. It comes back to how they are interacting with reality. One of the most common things we see, and if you're a coach or you watch sports, you hear coaches talk about this all of the time. If an athlete, a member in my gym, whatever, doesn't believe that they will hit a lift or have a breakthrough on their weight, it's not going to happen, right? Very rarely, if ever, do we hear somebody walk up to a barbell and they're thinking to themselves, man, I suck. I'm terrible. This is not going to go well. And then they pull out like a back squat PR. That doesn't happen, right? I mean, and if it does, it's an anomaly. What we hear far more often is people using visualization, people using positive self-talk, people having confidence and a belief that they're going to hit a weight or do something in their sport or whatever before they do it. That is far more common. And we just know this to be true at this point. There has been research done on piano players, and this is not from me. This is something that David Bayer has talked about, but I don't know the exact study, but I'm going to take it at face value because, again, I've seen studies like this. But essentially, there was a group of piano players that were brought in, and they did a brain mapping, and they played piano, and they saw what aspects of their brain lit up. And then they brought them back in, no piano, and they said, imagine yourself playing what you played before, and the same aspects of their brain lit up. Okay, so what does that mean? We know this. Our brain, our mind is creating our reality, okay? But functional practitioners, these podcast hosts like Andrew Huberman, Peter Attia, etc., and a lot of just coaches in the gym, they don't talk about mindset. And the reason for that is maybe a couple fold. I feel like the mind gets cordoned off to this thing that's like taboo to talk about because of mental health, which I look at just like physical health stuff, right? So as a functional practitioner, I'm not going to diagnose anybody, right? If somebody has something that's diagnosable or whatever, they need to go to a medical doctor. Same thing when we're talking about the mind. If somebody is showing signs of depression, suicidal ideations, anything like that, yeah, they need to go talk to a professional. But that doesn't mean if we don't feel confident in it, we can't talk about somebody's self-limiting beliefs, mindset, visualization work, all of these types of things. Like that is not off the table. And if I'm being quite honest, one of the main reasons people aren't able to stick to or see long-term benefit from any protocol they're on, whether that's for their health, program they're on for fitness, or anything really, is because they don't have a fundamental shift in their mindset. Here's the God honest truth, guys. The reason you are where you are in your life is because of your mindset, for good and for bad. So all of the good things in your life, yeah, it's been your mindset around it. But all the bad in your life, yeah, it's also your mindset, okay? And the problem we have is we're layered on with all of these belief systems as children from our parents, from our upbringing, from our communities, from society, etc. And we don't really get to pick any of those. They just get kind of layered onto us. And most people go through life and they never question them, right? They never question their belief systems. They never question these patterns of thinking. They just think like this is true. This is reality. Now, if you're listening to me and you're here, you probably know like you're maybe somebody that has done some introspection and questioned some of your belief systems. But, using things like stoicism or maybe religion or philosophy or whatever it is, hopefully that has caused you to look inward and just ask the simple question, why do I think the way I think? Why do I react the way I react? And you may start to understand that a lot of the reasons you think the way you do, the belief systems that you have, weren't yours to begin with, right? They were layered onto you. And that's kind of the work of self-growth, is you can start to pick and choose what patterns you want to continue, which ones you don't want to continue, and, develop new belief systems. But I find that most people don't have a foundation for how to do that and why to do that. And here's how this links to physical health. This links to physical health because what I find is, for myself and for anybody I've worked with when it comes into the functional health space, like entrepreneurs, high achievers, etc., is that they had some kind of belief system that was part and parcel with them experiencing their disease, or their autoimmune disease, or their lack of health, or whatever it is. I've talked about, my belief was I have to achieve to provide value and to be worthy and loved. Well, that belief ultimately led me to physical deterioration. Okay. But that was a belief system I had. I had to rework that belief system if I want to get healthy. You may have your own belief system. A lot of people's belief system is, I'm broken. There's something wrong with me. That's like the easiest one I can identify. There's something wrong with me. Well, if you believe something is wrong with you, no amount of protocol, supplementation, physical health is going to change that. And you may make some meaningful strides by taking care of your diet, by taking care of your physical fitness, but it's not going to stick because you still think there's something wrong with you. And what's going to happen is the brain, and we're going to talk about this, is a self-fulfilling kind of prophecy machine, right? The ego wants to be correct. And so if you don't change this fundamental belief that there's something wrong with you, and you start to see progress being made, you're going to either consciously or subconsciously start sabotaging yourself because there's something wrong with you. Things can't be going right? If you're the person who, when things are going right, you're immediately thinking about how it's going to go wrong, or reflecting on the past when the rug gets pulled out from under you, you have a belief issue. And that belief issue will always bring you back to the place you didn't want to be in the first place. And so all of these practitioners, podcast hosts can have great recommendations. I myself can have great recommendations. Coaches can have great programs. But the reason it won't stick or it won't last in the long run is because none of them are talking about mindset. Maybe some of them are, right? But it's very rare, right? I throw on an Andrew Huberman podcast or a Peter Attia podcast, and they're talking about self-limiting beliefs, and they're talking about mindsets, and they're talking about philosophy, because that's over here, and physical fitness is over here. And you guys know I don't believe that, right? I believe that everything is holistic. The mind, the body, the spirit, the nervous system, it's all working in tandem. And if you only focus on one thing, you will make some improvement, but it will never last and it will never stick. You have to improve and work on all these different areas simultaneously if you want something to stick in your life. Okay? So self-limiting beliefs. It's the big one that I'm talking about today when it comes to mindset, because again, that's what I've run into for so many people. All right. So again, I kind of talked about one self-limiting belief. There's something fundamentally broken with me, but there's so many other self-limiting beliefs. I'm not good enough. I'm bad with money. Nobody loves me. There's no good people out there, right? These self-limiting beliefs become the framework for how we interact with reality. And I said the brain is a self-fulfilling kind of prophecy machine, right? The ego, okay? I'm using both of those kind of in tandem. What we have is something called the reticular activating system. Now, again, this framework for this is David Baer, right? It's not like unique to me, but it makes a lot of sense, and I've seen it help a lot of people, and it's helped me, and so I want to relay that message to you. So the reticular activating system is the part of the brain that helps us bring awareness to things. This is the part of the brain that is activated when that new car experience. Let's say you buy a new car, and you've never seen this car on the road before. You buy it, and now you see it everywhere, right? We've all had that phenomenon happen, okay? That's the reticular activating system. In essence, our brain filters out about 80% of everything we see during the day, and it only retains about 20%. You know that 20% it retains? It retains information about things we already believe. It reaffirms our current belief system. You see, this is the issue. A lot of people think this works backwards. So a lot of people think there's evidence in my life for my belief system being the way it is. And you're not wrong, but people think that's happened first, right? It's this whole like chicken or the egg. Well, people think like, well, all of these things happen, therefore it must be true. The problem is somewhere along the way, you believed it to be true. You've only focused on these elements over here, and you've created that belief system, and you're going to continually reaffirm that belief system by finding evidence in your everyday life for it. Well, how do you overcome it? Develop a new belief system, and then you have to find evidence for it. Okay. But if we go back to the I'm broken, I've had this experience where I've talked to some people who are maybe interested in doing like some of the functional practitioner work, some healing work, but they have this, the way they talk about themselves, right? I don't want to use it's like a victimhood mindset. It's just this belief system that they're different. There's something fundamentally flawed with who they are, and you just wouldn't understand it. Okay. If you believe that, nobody's going to be able to help you. Nobody. Because if you believe in your heart of hearts, I'm different, nobody's going to be able to help me, I'm so unique, I'm broken, nobody's going to be able to help you. You have to change. You're going to have to believe that there is hope out there. Otherwise, you're going to undermine every single action you take to say you're getting healthier. And I've seen this happen time and time again. Those kinds of people, they start a protocol and they're following along. And then what do? They half-ass it. They don't follow through with everything. They don't go all in with the supplementation protocol or the diet, right? And what do? After a month or two, they go, oh, this just doesn't work for me. See? Oh, God. Look in the mirror, okay? This is not your practitioner's fault. This is not your coach's fault, right? The people that go like, I just can't break through this squat PR. And then you look at the program, the program's fine. And you're like, well, okay, how, I skipped Monday, or, like I backed off percentages, and this person really wanted me to work out with them. And I just love working out with other people. And so like, whatever it is. And they blame the program. They blame the coach. Okay. It is your belief system around who you are, what you're capable of, and your unwillingness to change that and to find evidence for that, and then to follow through with that. You become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Whatever you believe about yourself will be true. It's impossible for it to be any other way, okay? So if you want to heal, if you're listening to this, you're watching this, and you have an autoimmune disease, you don't like where you're at with your health or your fitness, you have to ask yourself, what do I believe about myself? Do I believe healing is possible? Do I believe fitness is possible for me? Do I believe wealth is possible for me? Do you believe any of those things? And if the answer is no, it's never going to happen. Sorry, it's not going to, okay? You're going to have to start there. You have to change your belief system first and foremost. You have to get to the conclusion that like this can happen for me. And then you have to find evidence in your life where it has happened in the past for you to believe it. Otherwise, it feels kind of like imposter syndrome, right? If you do not do that, no amount of protocols, no amount of going to the gym, no amount of self-help books, no amount of podcasts is going to make this stick. You may make some changes in the short term, okay? This is why people lose weight and then they gain it right back, because they don't change a belief system about themselves. They still think they're that person who weighed that much. Whatever belief system led them to that. Maybe they believe that they're not worthy. Maybe they believe whatever it is, but there's a belief system that led them to be overweight. They did the physical fitness things, the diet things. They lost the weight. They didn't change their mindset. They're right back where they were. Okay? Sorry. It's just the truth. All right? If you do not change your mindset, none of this stuff will stick. And that's why when I coach people, right? When people are working with me, whether that's in the gym or when I'm doing my functional practitionership with people on healing, mindset is always incorporated with what I do. It has to be, because I don't believe as a coach sending somebody off after they get done with me, knowing full well that they're going to fall off the wagon and be right back where they started. That is malpractice. If I'm doing my job as a coach, they should leave me, and I should, in my heart of hearts, know they have all the tools and they have changed the way they think about themselves, and they are living a fundamentally different life. If they're not living a fundamentally different life, they're living the same life with new habits and protocols, but they don't believe they're a different person, they're going to be right back where they started 3 months, 6 months, a year from now. And I don't feel okay with that. But unfortunately, I see most coaches, most practitioners doing just that, right? They give them the diet, they give them the program, they give them the supplement protocol, they send them on their way, they make some small changes, they post their success stories, they get more clients, and little do we know, those clients 6 months from now are right back where they started. That's not cool, man. That's not what this should be about. We should be fundamentally changing people's lives, but to do that, we have to get into the mind. You have to have a framework for how to change people's mindsets. My most fulfilling times in the gym are not when I'm necessarily coaching somebody to a PR. It's in between the sets. It's after the class when somebody comes to me and they're talking about themselves and they're saying, well, I think this about myself, or, my relationship, or, usually it's a self-limiting belief. And I talk with them and I help work them through some mindset things, and I see their eyes light up and, oh, I didn't think about it that way. Or maybe they even start crying or whatever it is. Those are the most meaningful moments in the gym for me, because I know that's fundamentally changing the way somebody sees themselves, and that will fundamentally change their life. Like back squat PRs are cool, deadlift PRs are cool, but is that like fundamentally changing somebody's life? Not necessarily, unless there's a framework for how they're integrating that into a bigger identity, how that belief system is changing around them. Like the thing that is really cool is not the PR in and of itself. It's the belief system that changes, where they used to believe they couldn't do that. Over the course of a cycle, they started to believe they could, and then they see themselves do it, right? The evidence, and they have a new belief system about who they are, what they're capable of. That's that. That is what this is about, changing the belief systems. So the one thing that these podcasters aren't talking about, that a lot of functional practitioners do not institute, that a lot of coaches don't even touch on, is mindset. And mindset is such a buzzword, but it really, really matters, because if you don't shift your mindset, if you don't shift your belief system around who you are, what you're capable of, you will never have any of this outside physical stuff stick. No healing protocol will stick. No fitness program will stick. No nutrition program will stick, because again, you think you're the same person, and that person led you to go like, I need to change, but you're that same person. And so you're just going to snap back to who you were before. You have to incorporate mindset work. Okay. I'll dive deeper into what some of that mindset works looks like. Okay. But no, mindset, if you are working with a coach and there's not some element of mindset work, and it could be as simple as reflections, questions, journal prompting, that's great. Okay. But if there's none of that, if it's literally, here's your macros, go away. If it's literally, here's your program, go away. Right? Now listen, if your coach is giving you a program, but then they're able to coach you in person and you have these conversations, different story, right? But if you are not in some way, shape, or form talking about your mindset, how you see yourself, anything like that, it's a problem. That's a problem. It's not going to stick. None of this is going to stick. You're not going to be fundamentally a new person. And so none of the changes are really going to stick. Now, again, I'm going to reiterate, if an athlete or a member or somebody is coming to you, if you're a coach listening to this, and it's very clear they are, on the route to self-harm or anything like that, that's way different. You need to outsource that to a professional. You're not qualified for that unless you're also a therapist, right? But we can talk to our clients, our members, our athletes about their mindsets, about their self-limiting beliefs. You maybe need to go get some education on having frameworks to do that, but that should not be off the table for coaches. I mean, that should be like way within our wheelhouse, because if we're trying to make meaningful changes for our clients, like that has to be the root of it, is mindset, right? And again, I'll reiterate, it comes back to training the body, training the mind, training the soul, training the nervous system. It's all cooperative. And if you want to fundamentally live a not only healthier life, but a happier life, right? A more fulfilled life, you got to do these things. And so you need to find yourself a coach or a practitioner, if you're interested in that kind of stuff, that can do that for you. I'm one of those, obviously. I'm talking about it, right? So if that's something you want to do, if you're like, man, I really want to get my health in order, but I also want to make sure that like by this time next year, I'm living a different life. I also want to be happy, longevity, reach out to me. I would love to help you out with that. That is what I do. It is my specialty. And again, high achievers, entrepreneurs, parents spinning 12 plates. I'm talking to you because I have and still live that life, right? So I'm speaking to you guys. I know how to help entrepreneur, the high performer, the person who feels like they're doing it all. And again, their health is stalled, their happiness is stalled, or just don't even care about their happiness, right? Your mindset in many ways is more important than anybody else's, because you're probably the provider for your family or the emotional pillar for your friend group or your community. You have to have frameworks for your mindset. Otherwise, it's going to all come crumbling down. So again, I hope this helps, right? Probably not something you're hearing on Andrew Huberman, Peter Attia, Rhonda Patrick. It's all about the physical health stuff there, which there's nothing wrong with that. but it's just one part of a greater equation when it comes to our health, our longevity, and our happiness. We got to work on our mindsets. And in the next episode, I'm going to give you some frameworks for how you can work on your mindset, how you can identify self-limiting beliefs. I kind of touched on it a little bit, giving you a teaser for that, and how you can work through some of those self-limiting beliefs, some philosophy you can look into, other things to help you with your mindset, and maybe have some tools to become a fundamentally different person if you want to do that. So I will see you guys in the next episode. Thanks for being here.